Hello and welcome to the True Value of Your Voice podcast and the Child Care Business Coach podcast. I am excited today to have our guest with us here today. I'm with Stacey Rees of Celebrating Childhood. And before I hit record, we were talking about her business and what she does. And it's really actually cool. I'm super excited to talk to Stacey about what she's doing and how she is enhancing the lives of young children through celebrating childhood. So Stacey, I will let you introduce yourself. So go ahead and introduce you and some of the work you're doing with Celebrating Childhood and as a child care center leader as well.
Sure. Thanks, Evelyn. So I'm Stacey Rees, and as Evelyn said, my sort of new business is Celebrating Childhood. I've been doing training and coaching and consulting for many years now, and kind of just now making it more official. I have owned a center for 25 years. This summer we'll celebrate our 25th anniversary. And so I've been in the world of early childhood for over 25 years, kind of took a, interesting path to get there. And now really enjoy working with educators and working with parents and working with families.
Oh, that's awesome. And I know before we were talking, before I hit record, we were talking about how you're really incorporating the parenting education piece into the work you do with child care centers, which is absolutely brilliant, I think. I'm sure for you at your program, it's probably helped just become a more successful program, which really helps almost create a peace and a partnership, I'm sure,
Right.
between your families.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so tell us about that, how it's worked within your own program.
Sure. So, when we started our program, my husband and I were young. I was 26, he was 24. We weren't married. We didn't have children of our own. And so people really took a leap of faith, sort of bringing their kids here. And I often joke that we grew up along with the children and with the program. And so we have 4 children of our own now who range in age from 12 to 21. And so it's really important to me now at this stage to bridge that sort of gap and make sure that there's not this disconnection between early childhood providers and families. Children come here with their families. Their families are our clients. They're the ones who are out there choosing the programs for their school. And so I think it's really important for educators to understand the importance of that role, and also for parents to sort of understand, what our sort of philosophy and mission is, and what our role can be, and sort of bridge that gap between the two.
Oh my gosh, I think that's absolutely brilliant, Stacey, because what I think you're hitting on something that is so often overlooked by not just the parents, but the providers as well. A lot of parents are going to be shopping basically for childcare and for people who are going to take care of their children. But I don't think they always understand is a lot of what we do in our world is we're basically helping to establish their social emotional competencies and a lot of the different things that are going to last children for the rest of their lives. Yeah. So yeah. I don't think parents always understand that picking out childcare is very important in alignment with their own values, right. their family values, their belief systems, all of the things. And I think childcare centers also need to understand how important that is, and that a lot of families are going to be a great fit, but a lot of them are not. And that is okay. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a negative thing.
Yeah. It takes a while to get there. I mean, I remember when we first opened, we wanted every single family that came through the doors to register. And so it was such a disappointment if they chose not to. And now over the years, I've realized that I don't want every family to come here. And I'm very open and honest, even on local social media, on moms groups. I'm very open and honest with people about what our program can offer their family. I'm really confident in what we can offer now. And so, if a family comes and what they're talking about is just doesn't align with what we're going to do, I'll say to them, you know what, I think maybe you want to look into another program. There's a lot of great programs, in our area. But yeah, it's getting to that point of where you can feel confident in what you're offering to
Right.
families, so that this way you realize if it's not going to be, nobody wants a family at their program where it's not going to be a good fit, right? I don't want to tell them
Mhm.
something that's not actually going to be the truth there. But yeah, certainly, bridging that gap, because I remember, like I said, when we started off and we had no children of our own, I remember looking sometimes and I would say like, oh, I'll never do that. When I have kids, I'll never do that. And I've done it all. And so
Yes.
I say to my staff all the time, you will. There's just things that you have to do as a parent to, get out the door to, make your day a little easier. And you grow and you realize that yes, you will, and it's making that partnership with those families.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. Is really truly understanding that this is a partnership, which means that you have to align. And I think that's where people don't think about that. They don't realize that the philosophies that are being taught maybe just don't work together. And even sometimes the what a family needs might be a nanny, may not
Right.
be,
Mhm.
or a child care home program, a
Yep.
family home, but not like a center based, or even the size of the centers or the
Right.
philosophy. There's so much that goes
Right.
into it that it's not as simple as, okay, this is the closest one for me to drop my child off at,
Right.
so it works.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of different modalities of care, and there's a reason
Mhm.
for that, and they all have their place. And right, not every child is going to thrive at a center-based setting. They might be better in a home-based setting, or like you said, having a provider coming right to their home. And so it's
Yeah.
it's helping people make that realization. They often don't know, right, when they first enroll their kids.
Mhm.
They often don't know, and then that might come afterwards.
Yeah. The other thing that really strikes me about what you're doing, Stacey, is it really takes a level of maturity. And we think of maturity in terms of like as we grow in age and we change in maturity. But what this is different. I think it's more of this level of business acumen that you have, and also a level of maturity as a leader, that you understand and know that you don't have to be afraid of not aligning with everybody. You're very secure in who you are and who you are as a leader, who
Right.
your business is, which that security helps you to see that you don't have to worry about taking every child and holding on to
Right.
every single
Yeah.
enrollment.
It takes a
So
while to get there though. And it does. It takes a while to, sort of figure out who you are as a business owner, who you are as a school, and that kind of grows and evolves. And I tell the staff all the time that, if I get to the point where I feel like I've stopped growing and I've stopped evolving, then for me that's the sign that like I need to be done. Because I
yes,
really feel strongly, and if I'm going to ask my staff to go out there and, get education and to continue to grow as teachers, then I have that same expectation of myself. And so I'm okay looking back at things that we did in the beginning and saying like, oh wow, we really, should have done that, could have done that in a better way. And so looking and problem solving, with other people in the industry to say, hey, you know what, we're really not doing such a great job with that. Let's change that. Like I'm okay with that. But that wasn't in the beginning, right? In the beginning, it's like you don't want to be wrong, and you feel like being wrong might be a sign of weakness. And now you
yes,
realize that, wow, being able to admit that you made a mistake and grow from it that's huge. That's where growth
it's
comes
huge.
from.
Yeah, you're so right about that. Yeah, and it is. I know for a lot of leaders out there, this conversation might just be like, I just can't because you don't understand. It's hard to enroll. There's just
Right.
not enough, but there is. And when you make peace with that, it
Mhm.
is amazing the
Yeah.
freedom. And honestly, for me, I became more prosperous. It was almost like when I was desperate to hold on to every child, that's
Yep.
when I struggled financially. And when you're
Mhm.
finally just like, the families in line with me will
Right.
come, and they're here, and the ones who
Yeah.
won't, that's okay.
Yep.
You actually go to this next level where it does become more secure and more prosperous.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's like that truth and the honesty
Yes.
with your clients as well as your staff as well as with yourself. And so I really find that that's a big positive, for us, is just that honest open communication with our staff and with our families, and admitting when we've done something that wasn't great or maybe could have done better. And I know that parents and staff appreciate
Mm.
that honesty.
Oh, so much, so much. Now, and then there's another level to what you're doing, which we see all the time. Childcare centers, we do often struggle with parents sometimes because parents really, honestly, they just don't know, right? We're experts in child development most of the time. We understand. We deal with so many children. We know their patterns of behavior. We know what kind of expectations
Right.
to place on them. We know that a 2-year-old can't do an 8-step process,
Right.
but we do forget that parents don't have the type of exposure we have, the experience, and the education.
Right.
And we often forget that they don't know what we know. And we sometimes sit and judge.
Right.
So I
Oh, yeah.
think that's the other area of what you're doing that is so brilliant about what you chose to do, because by educating parents as well as providers, you're closing that gap
Right.
to
Right.
create this peaceful cohesiveness. So tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So what I started to realize, I've been training staff, I mean, really for 25 years since I've been open, but more formally in the last 10 years, I've started training staff at other programs, both in person and virtually. And what I started to realize is a lot of the workshops and trainings that I'm doing and coaching that I'm doing with staff is really things that parents could benefit from as well.
Mhm.
And so I started reworking some of my workshops so that they could be more family and parent oriented. So same topic as I might use with educators, but just like a slightly different spin on it. So coming up soon, I'm doing something called Little Kids, Big Emotions. And so that's something I do with educators, but this is purely focused on parents and on families, doing it at my own school for parents of my program, as well as other local schools. And then I'll be doing it virtually as well, really focusing on how to deal with problem solving and conflict resolution with kids. Because I felt
Yeah.
like that's where I wanted to start. Because for me, that's a huge thing. As a parent of, like I said, four kids, I find that, we need to build resilience in children. We need
Yes.
to be teaching kids to be problem solvers. I didn't get to where I am today by giving up easily. Right. And so my husband and I both sort of always had this can do attitude. And it was like, we're not going to fail. We're just not going to fail. And so if there was something that an obstacle that got in our way, well, all right, it's just a problem. We have to figure it out. We have to solve it. Maybe we have to do it in a different way. Maybe it takes a little bit more money, a little bit more time. And so that's what I'm really trying to first get out to parents, because I think that, they want to solve the problems for their kids. And
Yes.
that helps in the moment, but now the next time you've got a problem and the problems get bigger as the kids get bigger, they need to be able to come up with those solutions on their own and deal with those really big emotions that kids
Mhm.
have. And
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of people in sort of my age range, people that I grew up with or that I know in the field, and they're saying, we felt like as children and adolescents, we really weren't encouraged to share our feelings. And
Mhm.
so now it's being able to bridge that with, it's not just about sharing feelings, but it's teaching children to express their emotions and then deal with those emotions in an appropriate way, right? A productive way. So it's both sides of that. It's not completely ignoring emotions, and it's not only focusing on emotions. It's using those emotions to then move yourself forward.
Oh, I love that. I love all of what you said. It's not like I tell children a lot of times it's okay to be angry. It's
Right.
how you use your anger.
Yeah.
And a lot of parents don't understand that interpretation, or they don't know, well, teachers and parents alike, they don't understand how to separate a behavior from the child. The child is
Yep.
not their behavior.
Right.
And helping parents to understand that, and the caregivers, is so empowering. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. And many of us as caregivers or parents, we're sort of pre-wired to solve problems for people, right? That's what we do. And I
Mhm.
did that for years. And then I realized I'm burning myself out. I'm exhausted, and I'm really not allowing other people to learn. And so through that, I learned, with my staff, with my own kids, to help them, be able to solve the problem on their own was really going to serve me in the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, people will often ask me with my own kids, like, oh my gosh, your kids are, so responsible. And how do you do that? I say it's just by encouraging them, letting them fail, right? Okay, you made a
Yes.
mistake, making them take accountability. You're the one that's going to have to talk to the teacher about it, and let me know if you need support in that. But being able to do those tough things. And so I'm trying, that's what I'm trying to really convey to parents, because we do that in our program. And so it would be so nice if that then carried over to at home, and then the children are sort of hearing the
Oh,
same
yeah.
thing both at home and in school.
And it just keeps it going. I think that's
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant. I know one of the things I tell parents all the time, um, and mainly because they don't connect the dots, right? They don't see that what they're doing today is going to lead to who this child becomes as an adult. So I always point out that those parents who help their children do everything, the child puts the shoe on the wrong foot, so they just put it on the right foot for them. Or they are constantly correcting instead of praising, things like that, just doing it all, not letting them pick out their own clothing.
right,
Then you have a 10-year-old who doesn't know how to tie their shoes, right?
right,
And you
right.
wonder why. And I
Yeah,
tell parents all the time, it's like, this is why you have to do this, because if
yeah,
you want your child to be able to tie their own shoes, to be able to just make a decision, you've
yeah,
got to empower them now.
yeah,
And those connections, like the fact that a more dramatic connection is a lot of times when children are cutters by the time they're like 8th grade on up, usually it's because they didn't learn that emotional regulation
yeah,
around 3 and 4 years old.
yeah.
So helping parents to make those connections
Yeah,
is
you know,
just so.
people are really we're uncomfortable with big emotions, right?
Mhm.
And especially if they're emotions like sadness,
Yeah.
or anger or disappointment. And so we want to make people feel better, right? We do it with other adults all the time. When somebody's experienced a big emotion, you know, we'll try to, you know, we want to make it better right away. So, you know, we'll either, you know, give them like a Me Too story of something that happened to them instead of really just like listening and letting them sit in that emotion. And I think we need to do that with kids. Like it's okay for them to be sad over, you know, a favorite toy that got broken or lost.
Mhm.
We don't have to fix it right away. And you know, sometimes we do that again because it, you know, it'll stop the crying and it makes them feel better, or maybe we feel, you know, guilty or bad. But really allowing them to fully experience that emotion and saying to them, you know, I know that you're really sad over this, or you're really frustrated, and let's, you know, let's figure this out. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Again, like you said, it's not the emotion that's the issue. You know, it's not the
Yeah.
emotion; it's what we do with it. But as adults, yeah, we just, I think a lot of it, like I said, goes back to, I think sort of our upbringing and sort of, you know, that uncomfortable feeling when we sit with emotions.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I think how what you're doing is absolutely brilliant. So I know you were part of my the training I do, the true value of your voice, which I was my passion is to bring people's voices to the world. I honestly believe we can change the world, especially with what we do. Early childhood education, we can change the world as we unite, as we really work together. So tell me, what is it that makes you so passionate about getting this? Where does this all come from for you?
Oh goodness. So I mean, I have wanted to work with children pretty much my entire life. I took a little bit of a, you know, different path. I started out as a physical therapist. I was working as a pediatric physical therapist, and I really felt like I wanted to be in a classroom, you know, more full time. So I went back to school for education. And
Mhm.
then, you know, we sort of took this leap and opened up the school. And once we opened the school, I sort of had a really tiny school in mind. And then, you know, my husband was
Yeah.
like, we can make this bigger. We can do this. And so, you know, once I kind of saw the success and I saw, you know, what we were doing and the impact we were having on families, it just sort of, you know, wanted me to be able to provide that for more families. And so we grew our program and we expanded. And you know, I at this point in my life, I really feel like I enjoy working with adult learners as well, which I
Mhm.
never thought, right? When I went to school for education, I
Yeah.
never envisioned myself working with adults, but I really am enjoying working with adults and then seeing that sort of that ripple effect of each time you work with an educator or a parent, now that sort of goes out to their family, to their students, their
Mhm.
school, their community. And so if so many of us in this world of early childhood are doing that, then, you know, just think of how much better, right, we'll be
Yeah.
able, how much stronger we'll be able to, you know, make our early childhood programs and make families when they've got that support and people who are really, you know, rallying behind them and focusing on, you know, because sometimes I feel like, you know, as a parent, I remember as a young mom, I felt like, oh my goodness, like this is hard. This is really
Yeah.
hard. And
Yeah.
especially nowadays, at least in our area, I'm finding that not as many families have the support of extended family. So, when I was raising my kids, I was very fortunate that I had both sets of grandparents, like within, less than a
Yeah.
5-minute drive. But now a lot of the families at my program don't have that. And so they need that support system to surround them. And that's really what propels me forward is I just feel like I want, for my kids,
Yeah.
my future grandkids, hopefully, if they're in the picture, I just want people to realize just how critically important this time period is for kids.
I love that so much, Stacey. And I can see that if somebody chooses to work with you, which I highly encourage those of you out there, get a hold of Stacey. I will put your contact information in the show notes and as well in comments so that you can, whoever needs to work with Stacey, you can find it there. But it's a really great idea because it will just really just empower both the parents and honestly, what we're all doing, right, is for the children. So in the
Right.
long run, it'll just make a better life for the children.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank
I love your
you.
passion. I think what you're doing is very unique. I think it's awesome. So yeah, you guys don't hesitate to get a hold of Stacey.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. And thank you for giving a voice to all of us in early childhood.
Thank you. And again, for those of you who are listening, make sure you like and subscribe and give me a review. If you're listening to the podcast, I always appreciate the reviews. Have a wonderful